So, your favorite LGBTQ daytime talk show host, Ellen,
love her,
was in some heat for hanging out with former President George W. Bush.
At a football game, right?
At a Dallas Cowboys football game.
In the Dallas Cowboys owner's box.
Correct. I guess she's friends with the owner's daughter, and that's how she was invited. And George W. Bush is, George W. Bush.
He's from Texas.
So I think it's really stupid that people are outraged that, two very opposite,
on the political
spectrum, right, are hanging out. But it's like, I'm sure there are things that you and I disagree on, but you don't see us like not being friends over it.
Like people about to start tweeting like, Abhijit and Jeff in the same podcast? Really?
But I think that's like a huge problem in like today's society.
Absolutely.
Is where people think like just because you and you and somebody tend to have different beliefs or different opinions or thoughts or literally ideas, anything, that you shouldn't be friends and you shouldn't be talking to them.
Or if you are associating with them, then you automatically agree with how they're... Yeah.
Right. And that's like the least intuitive way to think about it, and that's going backwards in terms of societal life.
Absolutely.
Right, like progression, like we're progressing backwards if that's the way that we start to think. It's really stupid, and that's just my opinion though.
Yeah, like that's why I really liked her response.
Yeah, her response was
everyone
good.
called her out, and then she was like, yeah, like I understand like why people are mad and stuff, but like the whole point of this is to be tolerable of people that have different views and be able to talk to people and have conversations like that and to be friends with people that you might not necessarily agree with.
Now, something I did see on Twitter was Mark Ruffalo, the actor that plays the Hulk in all the Avengers movies. He quoted the tweet from Ellen, and he said, I don't think we can even begin to, talk about kindness and treating people with kindness when someone like George W. Bush is guilty of all these war crimes and such and such. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like even in I think there's a difference between making a distinction whether somebody is a good person and some things that they've done in the past. Like it's not like Ellen was sitting with George W. Bush and he was at like an anti-LGBTQ crowd. Like he wasn't. He was at a football game.
Yeah, they were both at the same place. They probably didn't even go together. They just showed up and they're both there and they're saying next to each other. Yeah.
Like it wasn't like George Bush was out here lobbying for terrible things, and Ellen was like, whoa, like George W. Bush. They just happened to be sitting next to each other at a
football game.
And it's just funny how like you said, Ab, like how society has kind of evolved into this space where it's almost tribalism to the greatest extent. Like if you're not in my lane of thought, I can't even, anybody that thinks about associating with you, I think less of them. Now you're a bad person.
And that's so counterintuitive because like the whole point is you should be able to have a civil conversation with somebody that you may not agree with. But at the end of the day, we're still all humans. We still have respect for each other regardless of our views, right?
Word.
So, like, I think that's where society should be progressing towards instead of the exact opposite way. Whereas, if you don't think like me, then you're wrong, and I don't want to associate with you. I think that's dumb.
And this fucking Ellen, like, people are really gonna get mad at Ellen.
On,
like,
bro.
she's one of the best people ever.
Ellen,
I love you.
We love you, Ellen. Have us on.
Honestly,
and like,
be kind to one another.
You're not going to change someone's viewpoints by saying, oh, your ideas are stupid, I hate you, whatever. You're going to change someone's viewpoint by sitting down, having a civil discussion, giving your points and your viewpoints, and then letting them decide for themselves.
I wish I could hear their convos. That'd be kind of lit.
Yeah.
George Bush and Ellen talking during that game.
Even probably like they showed them like there's a picture like they were like appeared to be laughing, but like maybe they weren't. Maybe they were laughing at two separate things, and they just happened to take a picture at that. Maybe they didn't even talk to each other. I don't know.
Or
propaganda, man. Propaganda.
It was just a third-party source that said something funny, and they both found it funny. Like you can't laugh nowadays, or what?
He's like, oh, George Bush is laughing. I'm not laughing.
Literally, bro. That's what people. That's so funny. Like we laugh at that, but that's seriously how people.
Oh no, you're really gonna laugh at that too,
dude. Like, that's seriously how it is, and it's
dope.
It is. Peace.
Interesting though. I don't know if you guys saw that video of Oprah and Ellen. They were sitting there. They were playing this silly game.
I love Oprah.
No,
probably a little more than Ellen. Love Oprah.
Yeah, it's basically like a minute clip of them. Like Ellen goes, "Oprah, you went to the bank last week," and she goes, "Yeah, I haven't gone since 1988. Just been so long since I went to the bank." And Ellen goes, like, "I can't believe you went to the bank." And then Ellen goes, "Why'd you go to the bank? Just like go there?" And she goes, "Nah, I went to go deposit my check of $1 million." And then Ellen goes, "Oh wow, that's great. How did that feel?" And she goes, "It felt great, but it was actually $2 million." And then they both laugh, and like rich people laugh, and like it's like imagine being that wealthy where like You like just casually go to deposit $2 million in a check to your bank account. You know what I mean?
She got billies.
Right.
Oprah's
Oprah
paid.
Winfrey is worth so much money.
I love Oprah.
She has her own
man.
network. She's been in television.
She's
and
been through a lot, man.
so
Been through a lot
long.
from Chicago.
Right.
R.I.P. Oprah.
So, hey, Oprah, have us on though.
I wish, but I used to be one of my favorite shows. Watching my mom at 5 o'clock every day.
On another note, ACT really making some people mad.
I'm pissed off.
The ACT has recently announced that they are going to be allowing students to retake individual sections of the test, being 4 guys that have taken an ACT before. How do we feel about that?
Like I've been telling you guys, it like sucks for us, but I'm happy for like them because that helps them out. But it definitely will change like the whole aspect of like that score, having a perfect score, because it'll make it a lot easier to obtain. But like I said, I feel like for that younger people that are going through it now, why not like help them out?
Well, I just think it will be less meaningful for the people who then get higher scores.
Right, I
'Cause
totally
then-
agree.
Then, like,
I
the
totally
average
agree.
score is going to be so much higher.
I
so
was
then
just
it's gonna
about
be
to say
much
this.
more difficult
And
to
they're gonna
differentiate.
change.
And we've seen every respectable university, their median ACT is just going up and up and up and up and up. So is it going to get to the point where there are schools that are just going to be 36 only, and then below that is like the
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, it's like it kind of is like that right now. It's. I mean, getting a good score on like a standardized test and having a good GPA is one thing. Because like if you think about it, I'm almost positive a lot of the people, like a large majority of the people that apply to Harvard, Stanford, any like other like Ivy League college, they're probably walking in there with a 36, right?
a lot of that is a lottery system. Like everybody that applies there is qualified. It's just kind of random.
And at that point, I guess it's like, I'm sure for a portion of the applicants, it's what you do beyond get a good score and a perfect GPA, or like, a perfect score, a perfect GPA.
And the interviews
right,
and shit like that.
Right. So like, I guess the only thing that this is doing is just like raising the scale.
Yeah.
Like
allowing
for
more
the
people to be qualified.
Right, for the average, but there's still going to be the kids that are going to get a perfect score that apply to Harvard, which then, are put in a pool of other kids that got a perfect score. So it won't change much, I guess. It's just like the scores are going to be higher, but I guess in my opinion, it'll mean less.
Yeah.
And I think what you're basically talking about is, once we do this, and like you said, once we allow a greater group of people to now have a better shot at getting this score that was once very prestigious, that you had to work really hard to do at one point. Now, we all can't sit here and say that there isn't obviously a clear advantage to being able to retake individual sections.
I can say that.
For sure.
But now it comes to the point, like you said, what's going to happen with these schools? It's going to artificially now bump up these elite schools, or they're just going to be even more elite, but now it's going to create a whole separate thing to where in the end, I think it's just going to end up balancing itself back out because they're just going to raise the standard for the admission for the school.
It's sort of like that $15 minimum wage.
Which was exactly where I was segueing. Beautiful work there.
Guys.
But as far as the $15 an hour minimum wage goes, that various employees such as McDonald's, other places are fighting for, I personally believe that is something that should not be done. And the reason I say so is pretty simple. I believe that a minimum wage job is made to be just that, a minimum wage. Like, it's not designed to be a job you work for the rest of your life, okay? Jobs like that are typically made for, kids or kids that are going through school, part-time, stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's not designed to be, a wage that you can live the rest of your life off of comfortably. That's just how it is. So I would definitely be opposed to that, I think. And then even so, that, like I said with the school thing, it just slide the cost of everything else up, because we have to offset. Some states it's like $7.50. You double that to $15. The cost of everything else is going to go up so much to offset that wage, and it's not going to matter. We're just taking the whole scale and just sliding it up more dollars.
I feel that.
Right, and like I have pretty strong opinions on this because I'm like, I don't know. Like, here's the thing with me, right? Is what you get paid is based on the value that you add to the company or the corporation, right? And so unless you're adding $15 worth of value to McDonald's or to whatever firm you're working for, you're not entitled to $15 worth of pay, right? Because here's the thing, right? I think this will actually hurt lower income and people that are on minimum wage, right? Because a lot of companies are already moving to automation for these unskilled jobs, right? And so they're moving to it. Say it costs $5 for a machine to do the same job.
Why would they pay $15?
That it cost a human that gets paid $7.25 for. And so some people are moving towards it because it's cheaper. Some may not be because it's not that big of a cost saving. But at the point where you now say that instead of costing $15, you could get it for $5. That's a much bigger cost saving. So automation and the process of moving to machines to do those jobs is going to only speed up.
Right.
And then there's going to be less people employed because of that. So
In fact,
it's actually going to hurt them more than it is going to help.
In fact, that's already started. So over at Amazon, they have these robots that work at the warehouse.
Move stuff around.
Right, to move stuff around and put their products. Right. So I think warehouse workers they do get $20 an hour. It's 19. I think it's like $19.50 an hour, and on average. But it's like, and keep in mind you have to account for a real human workers, bathroom breaks, breaks for food, right, whatever.
And here's the thing.
And they get tired.
To compromise for that, Amazon as a company has very stringent efficiency guidelines that these workers have to follow. Now you hear these stories about in warehouses, and you got to think these Amazon warehouses are, sometimes hundreds of thousands of square feet, huge. So if they only have bathrooms in one area, it might take quite literally, 5 to 10 minutes just to walk to the other side of the warehouse to use the bathroom.
Right.
So when these workers are working on their shifts, they're saying, we don't have any time to go to the bathroom because we won't meet our productivity goals if we take 10 minutes out of the day to go to the bathroom. You know what?
Somebody we know actually went through the same thing. Our friend Zos, he worked at was it Honda? I think it was a Honda warehouse or some I guess it was a plant where he would install parts on a car, right? And it was this giant, absolutely just behemoth of a warehouse. And every time he would, have a bathroom break, it would take him 15 minutes to walk across the facility. By the time he did that and walked back, he doesn't meet his goal, his productivity goals. So at that point, it's like, what do you do? You know what I mean?
And I think it's a great example of what Sammy was saying, how to compromise. Amazon already has these robots that do this job, and they're saying, okay, we'll keep people doing this, but in order to do it, you have to meet these efficiency guidelines.
Right.
If not, we'll just get the robots to do all of it.
Right.
Yeah. They're still trying to get people jobs, but I think a lot of the time, if you take into account everything in the scope of the minimum wage, like you said, if that value isn't being added, the jobs are going to get a lot suckier. It's going to be a lot more difficult to do these jobs.
Yeah. But I've also been seeing and reading that adding automation in these robots to the warehouses may actually not be the end all be all of jobs in that market specifically. Because a lot of times, things malfunction, things happen. So I guess it would end up creating newer jobs, just different jobs, where instead of those people, doing the actual moving stuff from one right. So it would be more like programming jobs and higher skilled jobs, which would end up paying them more. So I guess So I guess less people would get those jobs, but they themselves would end up making more money. You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying. It's going to hurt the people who were working those unskilled jobs.
Right.
And it's going to benefit the people who have those computer science
which is the same problem we already have
and this
that
may
we're trying
come off,
to remedy.
And this and this may come off insensitive, but if you are if you're doing if you work at McDonald's like you said earlier, you are quite literally filling the position of a 16-year-old high school person's job. You know what I mean? That's not meant to be a long-term livable income worth of a job, right?
Now, you can say, general managers of these stuff like that.
Right.
Once you get in higher up.
Okay, but that's a whole different story.
Right. But they're also not the ones making $7.25. They're making
right.
20
Absolutely.
or whatever they're making.
Absolutely. But it's the thing, if, and I'm super against the education system that that America has in place, because I'm not even from here. I come from Nepal. He's from Iran, and so I've been to school in a completely different system, right? And keep in mind, New York,
crazy,
right? Crazy, wild. However, I think so. When I first came here, I think I was able to skip a grade or so, or maybe even more, simply because of the curriculum that these other third world countries employ, because they're so far ahead of the American education system. And I know this started as a minimum wage debate, but this kind of goes hand in hand, because with the education system that's in place now, it's almost churning out people that will end up, working those minimum wage jobs. So, like education system in the United States is not exactly geared to prepare us for higher education or, anything beyond like just that high school diploma, that piece of paper that a lot of people will end up getting and then just not doing anything with it. You know what I mean? Like it really doesn't add any benefit to our lives, in my opinion, right? Like I've learned more things out of school in the last 8 years, right? We just had the discussion earlier. 8th grade for us was 8 years ago?
Yeah.
In the last 8 years, I've learned more from YouTube, Khan Academy, you know what I mean? Like all these self-learning like websites or, channels or
Shout out
Chegg. Shout out Quizlet too. But you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. So it doesn't really gear us and it doesn't prepare us to take those, to take up those higher end skills and higher end jobs that would end up getting us more money because the system just wants to churn out workers, which will then fulfill those minimum wage jobs and keep the cycle going. You know what I mean? So, the root of minimum wage may not just be, oh, we don't want to pay these people. It's, people are kind of, I always see this picture. It's like where like people go through high school and, there's like a light bulb above their head. And instead of like that light bulb, being flourished and, worked on, they break the light bulb, just put a graduation cap on, and that's it. You're out of the system. And then now you fall into like the system where you work a minimum wage job, then you work another one, and it's just like all bad.
Yeah, see, I think there's sort of a false pretense that college actually prepares you for jobs.
Right.
Right? College does nothing to prepare me for a job. There's nothing in college that I've learned that's actually going to help me in the job and the career field that I'm going to choose. What would actually help me is doing a 10-week internship or a couple-month internship. I learned, because, I had one. I learned so much more in a 10-week internship than I had in previous 4 years of college.
I heard from somebody once a pretty good quote, and it says, college doesn't teach you how to do a job, it teaches you how to learn.
Right. Which, honestly, that makes a lot of sense because I've learned so many things. I've learned so much since I've left high school and been in college. However, I really wish I had known the things I know now back then because I would have done everything so much. I mean, hindsight is 20/20. Yeah. I would have done things so differently. Like, the one thing I really want, like, I love business. I'm a very, like, business-oriented person. I'm a very, like, money-driven person. And had I known the things that I know now back then, I would have done things very, very differently. I really wanted to go to business school, like, go into business when I was younger. And, like, I was like, oh, let me go to school for, let me go to college for business. And then as I grew a little bit older, I realized sitting there and listening to people teach me about business is going to add almost little to no, like, significant value rather than me going and starting my own business, right? And I'm not saying, go take out a loan of however much you decide and just start a business, but it's like experience tends to be a better teacher than somebody like reading notes to you from a slide.
Oh, for sure.
Dude, and that's the other thing is, like, these professors and everything, no disrespect to any of my professors, but, like, I have a lot of these business professors, and they're like, oh, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. I'm like, if you're so knowledgeable and so good at
go and do it, man.
Making a business.
Right, and there's that famous quote, what I'm saying, those who do, do, and those who can't teach.
Yeah.
No disrespect to teachers, because, I think teachers are super important to, like, the future generations and everything, but it's the people that claim to be so, unearthly in terms of their skills and what they can accomplish. But they're stuck teaching other people how to do it.
It's like I'd rather learn from somebody who's started a multi-million-dollar company
that
I'm interested in than some random teacher that's just like, oh, this is what we learned in our education.
Right.
On the same token, though, I do have one professor who is like that. Like, he's insanely, like, brilliant.
Some of them.
And there was actually
That's dope. I like.
There was actually, from a student who had a friend that had graduated that said his actual place of employment was trying to hire my professor for exponentially more money than he makes, triple the amount of money he makes as a professor, and he actually turned it down because he likes teaching that much. And
see,
I respect that though.
But that's like, I think that's you come upon that very rarely.
Yeah, I
True.
think
You know what I mean?
True.
Like, those people just have a knack for teaching. That that's their passion, and to them, hats off.
People should be teaching.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But a lot of people that get into teaching is like they hate their job. They're just doing it for the money. You know what I mean? But they speak as if they're they're super knowledgeable in whatever they do. But it's like, once again, if you're so good at it, why are you like, because a lot of people are like, innately like selfish. If they knew something that the rest of us didn't, they would then try to capitalize on that. And I can't speak for everybody, but they would then try to capitalize on that and then use that for their, financial gain or some sort of benefit.
Right.
But instead, they're at some college, teaching kids how to like start a business, do this, do that. And I've always been like a big believer in experience as a teacher rather than an actual person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why we're starting a new business this week. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think that works with sex too. Experience is definitely the best. That one kid.
Don't cut that.
I don't know if y'all saw it. It was a larger girl that had stepped up to this guy and no,
Swing.
right, eyes closed, just swinging, right? So
there was a larger girl.
that stepped up to this guy who I'm pretty sure the guy was shorter than her.
Oh,
right?
he was.
It looked like he was shorter than her.
Yeah.
Like we talking like under 5'8"?
Well, I think they were like middle schoolers or something. They
Some-
looked
okay,
yeah,
okay.
They're
but
like 13 or 14.
yeah. Point being,
Showing the video where that dude like knocked the girl out on the floor.
right,
And her glasses fell off.
dude. They didn't fell off. They flew off. You know what I'm saying?
I kept rewinding like
It was yeah. So the point is, they were like, the guy goes back off, and the girl steps up, gets in his face, and then some guy from the back, some troll goes, "You guys should kiss," right? And the dude turns around and makes like a bad breath joke, and she like shoves him, right? So in retaliation, the kid shoves her back, and he's like, "Don't touch me,"
And she
right?
swung in his face.
And then she starts swinging. So homie comes through, shoves her a little bit more, and just gets her with a nice right hook, right? And
knocked her shit out.
right, and this girl's glasses just, Geronimo, they just
Good
go
night.
right off her face, you know what I'm
Good
saying?
night.
And
Thanks for playing.
chicks, at this point, she's sleep, you know what I'm saying? But
Crazy.
and I saw somebody who had just the worst take, in my opinion, on this situation, where their take was somebody quoted that video and said, "Sorry, but if your trashy ass daughter puts hands on my son has full permission to defend himself and smack the shit out of your daughter," right? Which I kind of agreed with, because once again, if you don't want to be touched, don't go around touching other people, right?
Right.
And roll.
And this somebody else, I'm not gonna drop any names here, Brit, whoever this is, said, Am I the only one who's not going to let my son hit females? Let's be honest. One strong adrenaline-filled punch from a man is probably enough to break a female's jaw. The only damage she'll do is a few scratches and bruises, and mama will whoop her ass for that. But we are not going to teach men under any circumstances it's okay to hit women back, right? And then she proceeded to say, I said what I said, and some of y'all completely missed the point. Go ahead and tell your boys they can hit women back. That's how they catch assault and domestic violence charges when they're older. Equality shouldn't mean allowance to beat each other. Muting this now, LOL. And I have one sentence to tell you. Equal rights, also equal lefts. Right? That's how I feel about it. Right?
So, like, her whole point then lies in the aspect of men are typically stronger than women, and therefore their punches are going to be more impactful,
Physiologically,
right?
probably true.
Right. So then, does it become a discussion of size, or does it become a discussion of gender? Right. Because if I walked up to LeBron James and punched him in the face, right, probably wouldn't impact him that much. But if he retaliated and then punched me back, I'd probably be in the hospital, right? So I think then it becomes a discussion of not gender, because LeBron and I are the same gender.
Yeah, and like
right?
some girls are probably stronger than some little dudes.
Yeah, no, like Ronda Rousey.
I bet there's hella girls out there that are way stronger than I am.
Dude, Ronda Rousey would beat all of our asses.
Honestly.
So it's
like
like it's not.
Word, naughty boy.
So I don't know. It's you get into a slippery slope when you say that like men can't hit women or whatever.
Right.
I think I think it's pretty simple. If somebody's hitting me, I don't care what gender you are. I don't care who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit me like one time, whatever, you're cool. The minute you take a second punch, and I know you're coming at me to actually physically harm me, I don't care who you are. I'm going to defend myself.
Well, no, because like this societal ideology that men shouldn't hit women has sort of perpetrated this idea for women to be able to then abuse
Abuse that.
fearing or not having to fear,
Fear
that a man is
men,
gonna
the
strike them
retaliation
back.
of
I
men.
think
Right.
women should fear men. I think we should assert ourselves.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
What am I saying?
That's so funny.
Jeff, we're leaving that in. You're gonna.
No, I like
all
how
of this.
we're like holding everything and talking like it's an actual show, but we're just saying some dumb in between. Like, what are you doing?
I don't think men should hit women first, right?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think. Let me stop you. I don't think anybody should hit anybody. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the first point.
But definitely, I don't think men should hit women first. But I think if a woman continuously hits a man, I think it's within his reasonable.
Personally,
power.
I wouldn't like punch her, but I would definitely like shove like.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
thought about the swing in her face, like, cause I her up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
No, here's the thing. The girl, or the guy first attempted to push her
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
and then she came back swinging.
Yeah.
And then only did he.
Then he
you know,
definitely lost his temper, and he's like, "F this, I'm hitting this."
So it's
Right.
like how many
Like, for real.
chances do you get?
Right.
Right. He gave her that warning shove and was like, "Listen, back
Right.
off." Like.
See, I got like a 2-punch rule. It's like if you hit me twice, I'm like okay.
Question: do you guys sit or stand when you pee?
I stand.
Sometimes I sit.
I sit in my own house.
Yeah. My mom made like.
Bro, same, bro.
What?
Like, you sit down, bro. Why wouldn't you? Your own house. Why you want to clean up splash piss?
Right.
Like it's your own home.
I normally just lick it up.
Like public, like, yeah, I'm gonna stand, but when I'm in my crib, I sit down
Yeah.
and piss.
I'll be doing that.
What if you have like a boner? You gotta like tuck your.
I gotta
boner
like,
in.
you gotta like push back.
Yeah. But people are like, bro, sitting and peeing is gay, bro.
Bro, are you gay? I'm like, yeah, bro. That's it.
No, or another scenario is when like you wake up in the middle of the night and you gotta go take a piss and you don't want to turn the lights on.
Yeah.
So then you can't see. So you're like, I'm not gonna like piss all over my entire bathroom because I
Right.
can't see. So I'm
Boom.
just gonna
Right.
sit down because I know.
I have
Exactly.
a very small light that's very not bright, and I turn it on so I
I
can
thought
see.
he was gonna say I have a very small penis, so it's not an issue.
He's like, no problems.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Infinity Podcast. I'm your host, Abhijit Katawada, and this is Sammy Cerise, our guest David Montazeri, and Jeff Joseph. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Had a pretty interesting conversation with you guys, a lot of which won't even make the cut, so that's a good thing. Tune in next week, next Sunday, to catch episode 14 with... Should we drop the name?
Nah,
we're
we'll
not
keep
gonna
it a
drop the
surprise.
name.
It's gonna be a good one though. It's
Yeah.
gonna be good.
You can find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes, and you can watch on YouTube.
And RedTube.
Love Red too.
Honestly,
I meant YouTube Red.
do you think if I started uploading like our episodes to RedTube, we'd like get more views overall?
Dude, I mean, I'd wank to us.
Jesus Christ.
I'd watch it on there.
That wraps up this episode. Catch us next time. We out.
Bro, you just went from fucking 21 to 47 real quick with those glasses, Dad. What the? Oh my God. What the?